In the chaotic world of Mexican crime, where death could strike at any moment, two names, Los Antrax and Los Mazatlecos, echoed as symbols of violence and power. On one side were the elite assassins protecting the Sinaloa cartel's drug empire. On the other were relentless challengers, ready to kill to seize territory. Their story is not only one of bloody shootouts but also a tragic tale of loyalty, betrayal, and the price of surviving in the shadows. 1. The roots of conflict. The story begins in the 2000s when Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the legendary leader of the Sinaloa cartel, brought his organization to the pinnacle of power. The cartel controlled most of the drug routes from South America through Central America and Mexico to the United States and Europe. From cocaine and heroin to methamphetamine, no drug escaped their grasp. With an immense fortune, El Chapo made himself one of the most powerful figures in Mexico. However, the cartel's power didn't solely rely on its drug supply but also its ability to protect its interests. To maintain control, El Chapo established an elite group of assassins called Los Antrax. This group was not only his personal guard but also an enforcement arm, ready to punish anyone who dared challenge the organization. Rodrigo El Chino Antrax Arequiga, the group's leader, was one of the youngest to achieve such a high rank within the Sinaloa cartel. Known for his leadership skills and unwavering loyalty, Rodrigo was not a born cold-blooded killer but a product of a society where violence and power were the only means of survival. He grew up in a slum in Culiacan, where children played with guns instead of toys. A poverty-stricken childhood made Rodrigo realize that joining the cartel was his only escape from hunger. However, the Sinaloa cartel's internal dynamics weren't always harmonious. The Beltran Leyva brothers, a critical faction within the organization, began to clash with El Chapo. These disputes initially revolved around profit sharing but quickly escalated into personal conflicts. The breaking point came when Arturo Beltran Leyva, the faction's leader, discovered that El Chapo had collaborated with the government to eliminate rivals, including the Beltran Leyva brothers. This betrayal prompted the Beltran Leyva brothers to break away, taking with them loyal members and abundant resources. They formed their own organization, Los Mazatlecos, with the goal of not only seizing territory but also exacting revenge on El Chapo. Los Mazatlecos quickly rose as a formidable force, controlling routes in Mazatlan and nearby areas. At just 25, Rodrigo was tasked with confronting Los Mazatlecos. He understood this wasn't just a battle between two organizations but also a fight for his honor. Rodrigo had to contend not only with external enemies but also with internal pressures within the cartel. High-ranking leaders demanded immediate results, while some members of Los Antrax began to question whether Rodrigo was capable of leading them. 2. Blood on the streets of Mazatlan. Mazatlan, a beautiful coastal city once favored by tourists for its long beaches and rich culture, became a dangerous place due to the rise of Los Mazatlecos. Murders, kidnappings, and attacks became daily occurrences. Locals lived in fear as violence became an inescapable part of life. Rodrigo knew that to face Los Mazatlecos, he needed to understand his enemy. He spent weeks gathering intelligence on their structure, resources, and strategies. Meanwhile, Los Mazatlecos were not idle. They launched a series of attacks on Sinaloa cartel's transport routes, causing millions of dollars in losses. One evening, as the cold ocean breeze swept through the streets, gunfire suddenly erupted in a crowded neighborhood. Los Mazatlecos had ambushed a convoy of Los Antrax, using heavy machine guns and explosives to annihilate their target. The attack left 5 Los Antrax members dead and many innocent civilians injured. Surrounding buildings were destroyed, turning the area into a battlefield. Rodrigo couldn't stand idly by. He summoned the members of Los Antrax to prepare for a massive retaliation. With support from loyal gunmen, Rodrigo led a team to infiltrate a Los Mazatlecos base in Mazatlan. That night, armed with heavy weaponry and a detailed plan, they launched a swift attack. Rodrigo personally eliminated the base's leader and left a bloody message on the wall: "Mazatlan belongs to Los Antrax." The attack sent shockwaves not only within Los Mazatlecos but across the entire underworld. However, Rodrigo knew this was only the beginning. Los Mazatlecos leaders would not surrender easily. and Mazatlan would witness more bloodshed. Local residents, exhausted by the violence, began fleeing the city. Businesses closed, schools ceased operations, and once bustling streets became desolate. But Rodrigo had no time to worry about these consequences. For him, victory was everything. 3. Cunning plans and deep schemes. As direct attacks continued, both Los Antrax and Los Mazatlecos realized that violence wasn't always the most effective way to achieve their goals. After his initial victory in Mazatlan, Rodrigo shifted strategies. He understood that to destroy the enemy, he needed to target their psyche and organizational structure. Los Mazatlecos, meanwhile, plotted revenge by targeting the families of Los Antrax members. In a bold kidnapping, they abducted the family of one of Rodrigo's top lieutenants, facing threats that his family would be killed unless he provided information. The man refused to betray the organization and paid with his life. This news spread quickly within Los Antrax, heightening tensions. Rodrigo realized that if he didn't act, the organization's loyalty would collapse. He gathered the group and declared, "Anyone who touches our families will pay tenfold." It wasn't just a threat, it was a promise. To retaliate, Rodrigo devised a plan to infiltrate Los Mazatlecos. After weeks of searching, he selected a young, talented, and relatively unknown assassin within the organization for the dangerous mission. Under a false identity, this operative infiltrated Los Mazatlecos and began gaining their trust. Within months, he gathered information about their transport routes, bases, and even the whereabouts of their leaders. Armed with this intelligence, Rodrigo orchestrated a series of precise attacks. One major base of Los Mazatlecos was destroyed overnight, along with millions of dollars worth of drugs and weapons. It was a severe blow to the enemy's confidence. However, Los Mazatlecos were not easily subdued. They began retaliating with more sophisticated strategies, such as attacking the Sinaloa cartel's economic alliances or using media to tarnish their opponent's image. 4. The price of power. The deeper Rodrigo delved into the conflict, the more he felt the burden of leadership. Every decision he made, whether right or wrong, came with enormous consequences. One day, during an ambush by Los Mazatlecos, Rodrigo lost one of his closest comrades, a friend who had stood by him since the early days of Los Antrax. The loss left a deep scar on Rodrigo. That night, he sat alone in a dark room, staring at the strategic map spread across the table. The map displayed transport routes, enemy bases, and plans he had meticulously crafted. But in his mind, one question loomed. Is all this worth it? Meanwhile, Los Mazatlecos were facing their own internal crises. Consecutive losses weakened their organization and shook the members' trust in their leadership. Some began suggesting alliances with other gangs, such as Los Zetas, to bolster their strength. Rodrigo knew time was running out. He decided to risk everything on one final battle. Gathering all remaining forces of Los Antrax, he prepared for a large-scale assault on Los Mazatlecos' power center. This will be the decisive battle, Rodrigo told his comrades. We will win, or there will be no one left to tell the story. 5. The fateful night. That night, the outskirts of Mazatlan were shrouded in darkness. Not a single streetlight was on, and the air was so quiet it felt unsettling. But in the shadows, two forces were preparing for a confrontation they knew would alter the fate of both organizations. Rodrigo, with the support of his most loyal comrades, secretly planted explosives along the route leading to Los Mazatlecos' meeting site. When the enemy convoy passed through, deafening explosions shattered the night, decimating much of their force. The survivors, driven by rage and hatred, charged directly into a head-on clash with Los Antrax. Gunfire echoed non-stop, and the flashes of explosions illuminated a battlefield littered with blood and corpses. Rodrigo fought like a wild beast, but he knew that with every pull of the trigger, he was losing a part of himself. As the sun rose, the battlefield was eerily silent. Standing among the bodies of both comrades and foes, Rodrigo felt an overwhelming emptiness. Los Antrax had won, but it was a hollow victory. Many within the organization had fallen, and Rodrigo no longer recognized the person he had become. In the pale morning light, Rodrigo gazed at the horizon and wondered, was it all worth it? And if it was, who truly won this war? 6. Loyalty tested. The already shaky unity within Los Antrax now stood on the verge of collapse. Some high-ranking members, tempted by promises of greater rewards, began secretly contacting rival organizations. Even Rodrigo, despite his sharp instincts, couldn't entirely prevent this wave of betrayal. Among the traitors was a trusted advisor Rodrigo had relied on completely. The traitor, claiming to want to protect his family from guerrilla attacks, provided critical information about Los Antrax's routes and operations to Los Zetas. As a result, several vital drug transport routes were ambushed, causing the Sinaloa cartel millions of dollars in losses. When Rodrigo uncovered the betrayal, he was furious beyond control. He ordered the traitor to be hunted down and executed in front of the entire organization. "This is the fate of anyone who dares betray us," Rodrigo declared, his voice cold yet authoritative. While this action temporarily reinforced loyalty within the group, it also left many feeling uneasy. Members began to wonder if Rodrigo was willing to punish a traitor so ruthlessly. Could he do the same to them in the future? Meanwhile, the alliance between the remnants of Los Mazatlecos and Los Zetas became increasingly evident. They launched small but effective attacks on Los Antrax's bases and routes. Rodrigo understood that without swift action, his organization would be annihilated. He convened an emergency meeting with Sinaloa cartel leaders to discuss countermeasures. "We are not just fighting one enemy but an alliance that grows stronger every day," Rodrigo said during the meeting. "If we don't end this threat now, we will lose everything." However, not everyone agreed with Rodrigo's plan. Some leaders felt he was letting emotions cloud his judgment. They wanted to focus on securing economic routes rather than engaging in a war they believed was unwinnable. Under pressure from all sides, Rodrigo faced a critical decision: gamble everything on one last battle or step down from leadership to avoid the risk of the organization's destruction. Regardless of his choice, he knew the price would be immense. 7. The cost of betrayal. Despite immense pressure, Rodrigo chose not to back down. He planned a final campaign to annihilate the remnants of Los Mazatlecos and Los Zetas. But just as the campaign was about to begin, shocking news arrived. One of Los Antrax's top leaders had been assassinated in broad daylight in the center of Mazatlan. The killer left a chilling message: the war has just begun. Rodrigo knew this wasn't just a war for territory or power. It was also a battle to maintain loyalty within his organization. Gathering his most loyal members, he declared, "We have no way back. Either we fight, or we are erased." The war wasn't over, and Mazatlan remained a battlefield of blood and betrayal. The conflict between Los Antrax and Los Mazatlecos concluded with costly lessons about power, loyalty, and loss. In the underworld, no victory is permanent, and no one can truly trust anyone. If you found this story captivating, don't forget to share it with your friends and stay tuned for more thrilling tales from Mexico's underworld. Thank you for listening.